in the rugged Appalachian foothills of Tennessee, on the night of August 17, 1786. David Crockett was born into a world that would shape him into a figure of legend. His family was poor, and his early years were filled with the hard work and survival instincts required to live in the wilderness. His father, John Crockett, was a fierce and determined man who demanded hard work and self-reliance from his children. Davy, as he came to be called, was no exception. The forests and streams of the Tennessee frontier became his school, and by the time he was a teenager, Davy was a skilled hunter and tracker. He learned to navigate the thick woods, trap animals, and build shelter, skills that would serve him well in the years to come. But it wasn't just the land that shaped Davy. It was the frontier's ethos. A man was only as good as his word, and only his strength and cunning could ensure survival. The land of his youth was wild and untamed, and it was here that Davy first began to dream of becoming more than just a backwoodsman. Stories of frontiersmen who ventured into the unknown to face the elements, and the growing tension between settlers and the encroaching forces of the United States government, sparked a fire in his heart. He would one day become more than just a hunter. He would become a legend. By the time Davy Crockett reached his 20s, he had already gained a reputation as a tough and capable frontiersman. He married at the age of 19, but his early years of marriage were marked by hardship. He and his wife, Polly, had children, but life was often difficult. He farmed, hunted, and participated in the rough and tumble of frontier life. However, Davy's early marriages were turbulent, and after the death of his first wife, Polly, in 1815, he struggled to find stability. In the midst of personal tragedy, Crockett found solace in his commitment to a larger cause, the people of Tennessee. His desire to make something of himself in a world where most men toiled in obscurity began to manifest in politics. Despite his lack of formal education, Davy was able to read and write, relying on his keen sense of common sense and his ability to connect with the people around him. His personality and storytelling ability drew others to him, and it wasn't long before he was elected to the Tennessee legislature. Yet, despite his early success, Davy faced criticism and scorn from those who saw him as an unrefined backwoodsman. Undeterred, Crockett refused to change, standing by his belief that a man's worth was determined by his actions, not his education or social standing. This stance would eventually lead him to make bold political decisions that set him on a path toward greater challenges. Davy Crockett's rise in Tennessee politics was anything but conventional. After serving in the Tennessee state legislature, Crockett was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives in 1827. While many politicians were content to toe the party line, Crockett was a man of principle. His outspoken stance against President Andrew Jackson's policies, particularly his stance on the Indian Removal Act, made him a target for political enemies, but earned him the admiration of many in the West. In Washington, D.C., Crockett was a colorful and unique figure. He was known for his rough-hewn appearance, including his famous coonskin cap and his homespun manner. Though he was a backwoodsman at heart, he became a favorite of the common folk, who saw in him a man who represented their struggles and concerns. He voted against policies that he felt were unfair to Native Americans and to the people of the frontier, earning both admiration and scorn. However, Crockett's political career was not without its challenges. His refusal to bow to the political machines of Washington led to his defeat in the 1830 election. But, ever the adventurer, Crockett wasn't the type to retreat into obscurity. His sense of justice and patriotism would soon call him to a new mission, one that would take him to the very heart of a revolution in Texas. In 1835, word came from Texas that the Mexican government was tightening its grip on the rebellious Texians, many of whom were American settlers seeking greater autonomy. The Texians had begun their struggle for independence from Mexico, and Davy Crockett, with his fierce independence and sense of duty, was drawn to the cause. He saw it as another fight for liberty, much like his earlier political battles in Tennessee. With his name in the headlines and a fierce desire to once again be on the front lines, Davy Crockett left his home in Tennessee and headed south toward Texas. The journey was arduous, but Crockett was used to hardship. He traveled with a group of volunteers, all men eager to join the fight for Texas independence. Along the way, Crockett proved himself a leader, sharing stories of his adventures and rallying his fellow men with his courage and conviction. When he finally arrived in Texas, Crockett joined the Texian Army, where he met fellow leaders like Jim Bowie and William B. Travis. It was a pivotal time, and Crockett, now in his late 40s, was about to make a mark on history that would outshine even his political career. By February 1836, the Texian rebels had fortified themselves in the Alamo, an old Spanish mission in San Antonio. The Mexican army, led by General Santa Anna, was on the march, determined to crush the rebellion once and for all. Crockett and his fellow defenders, including Bowie, Travis, and the legendary James Fannin, prepared for what they knew would be a fight to the death. For 13 days, Crockett and the other defenders fought valiantly, holding the Alamo against overwhelming odds. Inside the fortress, the defenders were low on supplies and morale, but they were determined to stand firm. Crockett, with his expertise in marksmanship and his natural leadership, became a symbol of resistance. His stories, his courage, and his unshakable belief in the cause inspired those around him to keep fighting. The siege was brutal. Every day, Mexican forces grew closer to breaching the walls. Despite this, Crockett remained unflinching. His reputation as a man who could face down death with a smile became the stuff of legend. The defenders knew that they might not survive the coming assault, but they held out hope that their sacrifice would ignite a fire that would spread across Texas. On March 6, 1836, after days of relentless bombardment, Santa Anna's forces finally broke through the Alamo's defenses. The final moments were chaotic, as the defenders fought with everything they had. Crockett, armed with his rifle and a determined spirit, continued to fight even as the battle seemed lost. As the Mexican forces overran the mission, Crockett and a handful of his comrades were killed. Some accounts suggest that he was taken prisoner, while others believe he died fighting in the thick of the battle. What remained certain, however, was that Davy Crockett, like his fellow defenders, died a hero, his legacy cemented forever in the annals of history. Though the Alamo fell, its spirit lived on. The cry, "Remember the Alamo," became a rallying cry for the Texian forces, who would go on to defeat Santa Anna at the Battle of San Jacinto just weeks later, securing Texas independence. Davy Crockett's death at the Alamo was not the end of his story. It was the beginning of his legend. Word of his sacrifice spread quickly, and soon, stories of his bravery and larger-than-life persona became a part of the folklore of the American frontier. He was no longer just a frontiersman or politician. He was a martyr for freedom, a symbol of the fight for liberty. As Texas became an independent republic, Crockett's name was celebrated by those who had fought beside him and those who had never met him. Songs were written in his honor, and tales of his life were told around campfires. He was portrayed as the quintessential American hero, fearless, resourceful, and committed to a higher cause. As time passed, Davy Crockett's story took on a life of its own. His image was immortalized in books, songs, and plays. His coonskin cap became a symbol of rugged individualism, and his adventures in the wilderness were turned into legends. Soon, he was no longer a man of flesh and blood, but a figure who transcended history. In popular culture, Crockett was depicted as a fearless fighter, a protector of the frontier, and a champion of the common man. His life was romanticized, with many tales exaggerating his feats and his character. But at the core of it all remained the spirit of Davy Crockett, a man who dared to live life on his own terms and who fought for the principles of freedom, honor, and justice. Davy Crockett's impact went far beyond his time in Texas. As the American frontier expanded, his story served as a blueprint for future generations. His character embodied the virtues that many Americans held dear: courage, resilience, and an unwavering commitment to freedom. In the mid-1800s, as the United States continued to grow, Crockett became a symbol of the pioneering spirit. His life and death inspired settlers heading west, soldiers fighting for their country, and citizens who looked to the frontier as a place of opportunity. The story of Davy Crockett helped shape the very identity of the United States, representing the ideals of self-reliance and the fight for liberty that would come to define the nation. Today, more than 180 years after his death, Davy Crockett's name remains as iconic as ever. From the pages of history books to the screen adaptations, his legend continues to captivate the imagination of people around the world. Davy Crockett is remembered not just for his role in the Texas Revolution, but for his embodiment of the American frontier spirit. Though his life was cut short in the heat of battle, his impact has endured across generations. Whether through the tales of his exploits or through the inspiration he continues to provide, Davy Crockett remains a symbol of bravery, sacrifice, and the relentless pursuit of freedom. The king of the wild frontier is gone, but his story will never be forgotten.